discover the incredible truth. He urged me to come alone for a life-changing revelation. Sarah stared at her phone, the screen illuminating her exhausted face with an unexpected call. Her heart raced. It was her grandfather, the one man whose name conjured a mix of shame and nostalgia within her. "Come alone to the farmhouse," he insisted, his voice cracking with urgency. The words echoed in her mind, a pulsing reminder of their strained relationship, convoluted by a family history rife with secrets and unanswered questions. She had managed to rebuild her life in this small Midwestern town, where she worked 2 jobs as a nurse, balancing her responsibilities with the demands of raising her 6-year-old son alone. Yet, the thought of encountering the man who once stood proud as a local hero, only to fall into disgrace, nagged at her. Reluctantly, she felt pulled into a vortex of curiosity and dread, unwillingly drawn to unravel the facade of her past. As she parked outside the decaying farmhouse, a chill settled in her bones. This place hadn't welcomed her in years, yet familiar scents and textures washed over her like an unwelcome tide. The door creaked open, revealing her grandfather. Fragile, yet alive with an intensity in his eyes that hinted at buried wisdom. He clutched a worn ledger, its pages yellowed with time. "There's something you need to understand about our family," he began, drawing her into tales of dreams and decisions that had once defined them, but now only cast shadows upon their name. The mention of an abandoned land trust sent a jolt through her. Financial security for her son loomed brightly on the horizon, a beacon that flickered against her tangled thoughts of familial loyalty, tainted by resentment. Torn between the prospect of reclaiming wealth and upholding the family legacy, she felt a war erupt within. Moments piled upon moments, each filled with heavy silences and sparking revelations. The deeper they delved into the stories of stigma and ostracization, the more empathy wriggled its way into Sarah's heart, threatening to undo years of hardened resolve. She could see the pain etched across her grandfather's face as he spoke, yet those echoes of her childhood, their family enemies, loomed ever present, resonating with the mockery he had endured. Sarah's breath quickened, nerves coiling tighter as frequently as she fought to contain her emotions. Could she embrace this man who had betrayed their ancestry, a choice that would turn judgment into vindication? Or would walking this path lead her away from her own carefully constructed life, risking everything for a bond she hardly understood? Before she could piece together her thoughts, urgency poured out. "Before we continue," a voice in her mind cut through the chaos. "I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue." The seconds turned into tangible weight on her shoulders as Sarah faced the stark reality. A door knocked, startling her from a trance. The shadows of her grandfather's past threatened to spill forth, unveiling hidden truths that could unravel everything. The figure outside held the potential for conflict, straddling both familiar hatred and unsettling revelation. Anxiety clutched at her throat, her heart racing as she fought to maintain control. This moment would demand a choice that echoed far beyond mere wealth, piercing through the legacy of a name still defined by scorn and shame. Would she step into the light, or be pulled back into the darkness of her family's history? The road ahead shimmered with uncertainty, and dread loomed larger than her fear of loss. The sudden knock on the door sent a jolt through Sarah, snapping her out of the emotional storm that had engulfed her. For a brief second, she remained paralyzed, half-anticipated confrontation swirling in her mind as she debated the necessity of answering. It could be just another reminder of her past, the grim shadows that encircled not just her grandfather, but her own frazzled soul. Taking a deep breath, she steeled herself. This moment held more weight than she'd anticipated. The weight of her family's legacy, her carefully constructed life, and her burgeoning curiosity. She opened the door to reveal a local figure from her past. A childhood friend turned nemesis, Claire, known for her sharp tongue and relentless rivalry. The fire in her eyes reminded Sarah of the days when playground disputes morphed into veiled gossip, that his family remained in disrepute. Yet Claire stood there, not the adversary from yesteryear, but someone bearing the weight of uncertainty too. "I heard you were back here," she said, voice tinged with something Sarah couldn't quite read. "We need to talk." Fighting back the urge to close the door instantly, Sarah stepped aside. "What do you want?" she asked, the steeliness of her voice surprising her. As Claire crossed the threshold, Sarah's heart raced for a different reason now. Not dread, but trepidation. Claire was not just a reminder of childhood enmity. She embodied everything Sarah had fought against. Or so she thought. Walking into the dusty living room, Claire expressed attention to the ledger in Sarah's grandfather's grip. "You think you can just waltz back into this town and fix everything?" Her sharpness pierced the air. "Our families have unfinished business." The insinuation hung awkwardly between them, voicing the unspoken doubts Sarah had about her potential alliance with her grandfather. Could she really embrace the family riddled with disgrace? But Claire's judgment felt like an intrusion, forcing Sarah to confront her own carefully buried doubts. "I'm not here to fix anything for you," Sarah retorted, her voice growing in conviction. "I need to figure out my own path, and, honestly, it has nothing to do with past grievances." As those words left her lips, she felt something shift within her, an awakening of sorts. Maybe there was strength in standing firm, even in the face of someone who would tear her down. Claire raised an eyebrow, surprised by Sarah's newfound assertiveness. "You'll regret this," she replied, but there was a hint of uncertainty in her tone. Even within the tension, a flicker of realization began to dawn on both women. This confrontation was exposing deeper vulnerabilities. As Claire paced around the room, her familiar bravado began to waver. "Why are you really here, Claire? It can't just be to throw stones from your past." Sarah probed, interest piqued. This wasn't just a reunion of two childhood rivals. It was an invitation for deeper revelations. What lay beneath their past animosity? The air thickened with unspoken admissions as Claire hesitated. "Because maybe we're both caught in this mess of who we thought we were supposed to be." The admission reverberated around the room, opening a conduit for empathy. Sarah felt the familiar pang of misguided expectations flood back, remembering the pervasive judgment both of their families wielded during their childhood. The need to prove worthiness had birthed a plethora of insecurities that they both wrestled with still. But now, faced with the outline of a shared dilemma, could they move forward together? Could this challenging conversation forge a new ally, or merely confirm their places as oppositional forces once more? Outside, the wind howled against the farmhouse, while inside, a storm brewed of a different kind, one of potential alliance or further division. Emotions tangled as the truth loomed large, testifying that their pasts could either suffocate or liberate them. Would they emerge fighting, or find a way to advance despite their histories? Sarah instinctively knew the answer would impact not just her path, but her family's renewed place in the town. She couldn't shy away from this pivotal moment, and neither could Claire. Perhaps standing at this crossroads, they might redeem their family's histories even when their legs felt eroded by doubt. As the room air thickened with new possibilities, Sarah recognized the pivotal choices awaiting her. Her grandfather's ledger might hold the key, but it would take more than numbers to carve a new legacy. The decisions beckoned now. Could she truly step into her identity and reclaim her family's narrative, even with Claire unexpectedly at her side? Just as curiosity flickered, another knock echoed through the hall. This one spoke of greater consequences. Her grandfather's voice rising, urging her to refocus on their family legacy before it slipped through her grasp. Would she seize the moment, or would doubt triumph over resolution once more? The sting of uncertainty lingered as she turned to face the new surge of potential conflict, waiting just beyond the door. The silence that followed the knock felt heavy, filled with an intensity that Sarah could almost touch. She exchanged a fleeting glance with Claire, who mirrored her uncertainty with a mix of curiosity and defiance. This was no ordinary interruption. It carried the weight of unsaid words and latent revelations. As Sarah felt a jolt of anxious anticipation, she wondered if this was the moment that would redefine everything. With a hesitant step, she moved toward the door, bracing herself for what lay beyond. Her grandfather's voice, thick with emotion, calmed her racing heart. "Sarah, it's not what you think. Just hear me out." The quiver in his tone pulled her to a halt, coaxing her to unlock the door instead of merely swinging it wide. Might this be an olive branch? A bridge to traverse the chasm of neglect that had widened over the years? "Claire, wait here," she said, the authority in her voice echoing her newfound determination. The timid girl from her youth had faded. In her place was someone willing to face the intricacies of her family's legacy. Instead of resistance, she sought understanding. As she pulled the door open, her grandfather stood on the threshold, a figure fraught with shadows and regrets. His weathered face reflected years spent in turmoil, yet there was a light in his eyes, a flicker of hope. "We need to talk about what really happened," he urged. But Sarah felt something deeper lurking, secrets bound in the pages of his ledger. "Now? After all this time?" Sarah challenged, the outrage simmering beneath her calm exterior. "You left me in the dark for years. Why should I trust you now?" The intensity of her emotion jolted her, but instead of shutting down, it sparked clarity. The conversation was no longer just about grievances, but a necessary confrontation rooted in genuine need. "It's time you knew the truth," he said, his voice low and steady. "About everything. Your mother, our legacy. The ledger isn't just numbers. It's a history we've all tried to bury." The words felt like heavy weights dropped into Sarah's stomach, the immediate ripple effect making her conscious of the risk she'd been treading. Claire shifted, intrigued and skeptical. What truth? What could possibly justify the years of silence? The rivalry that had once divided them felt secondary now, as the alarming reality of family secrets wrapped around them like a storm awaiting release. "Let's sit," her grandfather suggested, leading them both into the living room. As they settled, Sarah's heart raced. The revelations spoke of a bond disentangled from resentment. The wind howled outside, unyielding, a mirror to the turmoil inside. She wanted to scream, to resist the tide of memories that threatened to crash over her. Yet something inside urged her to pull back the curtain of her own ignorance. "I wasn't just absent, Sarah," her grandfather continued, sadness clouding his eyes. "I was fighting demons you can't imagine. Your mother. She was trying to protect you from the truth. The ledger holds both our debts and our aspirations." With every word, the pieces began to shift. This wasn't just about her family's blemished reputation. This was about the weight of survival that had pressed down on all of them. Could she allow herself to forgive him? To unpack the years of resentment chained to her psyche? Before she could ponder further, Claire interjected. "A legacy built on deception might not be worth saving. Are you really willing to dive into this head first, knowing what's at stake?" Sarah's gaze flitted from Claire's challenging expression to her grandfather's solemnity. Each stood at a pivotal moment stark, with potential. Could they stand together, untangling truths to achieve something greater than their tumultuous past? With a deep breath, Sarah seized the moment. "What do you need from me?" What do you want me to understand? The question hung between them, a bridge toward understanding that could either deepen the wound or begin the healing process. But uncertainty still loomed. Would they uncover a truth worth salvaging? Or would this journey plunge them deeper into despair? As the air thickened with anticipation, Claire's apprehension mingled with Sarah's determination. The decisions that lay ahead would challenge everything she had come to know about loyalty, family, and identity. In that moment, as the shadows danced around them, a raw truth pulsed through the tension. It could be the salvation they desperately needed, or the unraveling of everything they thought they were fighting for. And just as Sarah braced herself for the storm of revelations, another knock echoed throughout the farmhouse, a harbinger of further complications yet to be unveiled. What more had they hidden, and how deeply were the roots of their family troubles entangled? That question gnawed at her, stirring curiosity and dread, ready to lead them further down a darkened path. The knock reverberated through the farmhouse, harsher this time, demanding attention. Sarah's heart raced as her eyes darted to her grandfather's face. The flicker of fear in his expression mirrored her own unease. This was no longer simply about unearthing family truths. It had become a complex web drawing in uncalled-for visitors and uninvited emotions. Who else could possibly be here? Sarah questioned, half expecting her grandfather to provide the answers she craved. But his silence spoke volumes. The air felt thick enough to choke on. With her mind racing and her resolve solidifying, she turned back toward the door. "I need to see," she stated, her voice steadying. Claire, still seated, shot her a skeptical look. "Sarah, this could make everything worse. You don't know who it could be. There's no way I can ignore it," she insisted, the weight of her own choices pressing on her shoulders like a mantle. Recognizing her authority, Claire paused, a mix of admiration and anxiety flickering across her face. As she swung the door open, a tall figure loomed just outside. Their neighbor, Mrs. Hargrove, a woman whose judgment was as sharp as her gardening shears. "I hope I'm not interrupting," she began, her eyes scanning the room with speckles of concern and a hint of intrigue. "It's fine. What do you need?" Sarah's voice was clipped, betraying the impatience growing within her. Just inches from her personal revelations, another layer of complexity had now been added, and the woman's presence felt like an unwelcome reminder of her familial scrutiny. Mrs. Hargrove cleared her throat, glancing at her grandfather with an expression that flickered between judgment and empathy. "I heard some things. Thought you might want to discuss it." "Discuss what?" Sarah snapped, feeling both defensive and exposed. She hardly needed another ear to hear the family secrets. "Rumors about your family's past. The ledger. People are talking. You should know." "Rumors?" Her grandfather cut in, firmness in his tone that suggested he was tired of half-truths passing for conversations. "What kind of rumors?" With a measured breath, Mrs. Hargrove gathered herself, her expression turning grave. "About debts. About failures. I thought you ought to know that some people don't think the legacy's worth saving. Some think it's best to let the past lie." Words pinned Sarah in place, like a butterfly captured in a collector's frame. The idea that the family's struggles had become fodder for gossip not only inflamed her irritation, but ignited her determination. "So we're not even dealing with secrets anymore. It's a free-for-all now." "Yes," Claire interjected softly, her eyes darting toward Sarah as if trying to gauge the storm brewing within her. "But this could push us to confront even deeper truths. I despise being at the mercy of others' opinions," Sarah admitted, her voice trembling with suppressed anger. This was her life, her family, and the narrative was starting to page through a book she'd never authored. The confrontation with this neighbor served as a catalyst. She realized she was on the brink of an awakening, a transformative moment when self-discovery intertwined with external realities. A silent understanding settled over the room. The stakes had launched beyond mere family dynamics. They were entrenched in public perception and societal judgment. How could she claim her narrative amidst the chaos? The murmur of a legacy sculpted by failures weighed heavily on her. Could acceptance of their history fortify her resolve to redefine it? With determination coursing through her veins, Sarah turned to her grandfather. "This is all connected, isn't it? The ledger holds more than debts. It's a map of our choices, our mistakes. But it's also our opportunity to redefine who we are. Tell me everything." The gravity of the moment hung thick in the air, pushing Sarah closer to the precipice of her personal revolution. The urgency of the revelations they were about to unfold would not just rewrite their history, but create paths for each of them to evolve. Before they could dive deeper, yet another knock interrupted. Instinctively, dread pulsed through Sarah's veins. Who could it be this time? Whatever awaited them now could either be the anchor they needed or the storm that capsized their fragile boat. As curiosity and trepidation intermingled within her, the vital realization struck. Choices would define them, teach them, and potentially heal them. With newfound focus, she moved toward the door once again, aware that the crossroads of revelation might shape her destiny in ways she had yet to imagine. What awaited her beyond the threshold? With a steadying breath, Sarah grasped the knob, steeling herself against whatever lay beyond the threshold. Her heart raced not just with fear, but with the pulse of anticipation. Each knock felt less like an ominous warning and more like a challenge. Whoever this was, they were here to test her resolve and determination to reclaim her family's narrative. Opening the door revealed a figure she didn't expect. Marcus, a childhood friend, now a man with weighed shoulders and weary eyes. "Sarah," he greeted softly, his voice tinged with urgency. "We need to talk. Can I come in?" "Of course," Sarah replied, motioning him inside. As he stepped over the threshold, she closed the door behind him, sealing the outside world away. Marcus leaned against the wall, exuding both familiarity and concern. "I heard about the ledger. There's something you need to understand. Something that connects to your grandfather's past." Tension coiled in the air. "You know?" Her pulse quickened. What secrets could he possibly hold? Was this yet another attempt by someone to lay bare the vulnerabilities of her family? "Yes," he said, glancing at her grandfather, who sat motionless, lips pressed in a thin line. "I thought it wasn't just gossip. I thought it was a warning." "Why? What do you mean?" Sarah felt the words clawing their way out, desperate for clarity. "I learned that the debts aren't just financial. They are tied to some serious decisions your family made decades ago. This isn't just about the family legacy. It's about survival now." His gaze turned somber. People are starting to look for answers and connection to the past. They're trying to take back what they think is rightfully theirs. Certificates of her family's failure had transformed into accusations, threats, and perhaps a fight for territory she hadn't known existed. Sarah felt the weight of his words, their implications reverberating through her thoughts. "What do you want me to do?" she asked, consciously keeping her voice steady. She faced Marcus now, bracing herself against the swell of emotions threatening to knock her off her feet. "You have to confront this. You have to go through the ledger, understand every entry, every mistake, because they're not just failures. They are potential lessons, opportunities to turn the tide." "Opportunities?" Claire echoed, her voice now more alert, filling the silence that had become a tangible thing in the room. "You think this could be a chance for us? A chance for Sarah?" Marcus nodded, a spark of conviction igniting in his eyes. "I know it sounds crazy, but yes. If you think critically, this isn't finished yet. It's larger than what you see. It's about facing those rumors head-on, about taking control of your own story, Sarah felt a surge of adrenaline and an overwhelming sense of fate shifting beneath her. The thought of the ledger transformed from a source of distress into a possible guide, showing the path ahead, a path brimming with choices she could manipulate. This realization was empowering and yet terrifying. Everything that had been oppressing her was now an invitation to reclaim her agency. "Okay, I'll do it," she professed, commitment hardening in her tone. "But I won't do it alone. We'll uncover this together." Her grandfather raised an eyebrow, surprised but intrigued. They would be facing the truth not as individuals weighed down by familial history, but as a united front ready to redefine what it meant to be their family's legacy. Marcus stepped forward, a hint of a smile breaking through his earlier tension. "Then let's get started. Every entry could uncover something you didn't realize about yourself or your family." A flicker of fear and excitement quashed the doubt within her. With growing determination, Sarah felt the storm of familial legacy brewing inside her, charging her resolve to rise above the past's shadows. But just then, another knock echoed through the house, louder than before, more insistent. Each thud felt like a drum of fate, rhythmically urging her to unearth the truth lurking just beyond the door of her life. "What now?" she whispered under her breath, heart racing. One final confrontation awaited her beyond that door, and whatever it was, she knew it would determine how strongly she could wield her voice against the shadows of expectation. Would the information they uncovered serve as a weapon or a tool for negotiation in her quest for clarity? Sarah reached for the door once again, her resolve solidified, ready for whatever the world was prepared to throw at her next. As Sarah turned the knob, a rush of conflicting emotions surged through her. Anticipation, dread, and an odd sense of courage. She was about to confront whatever uncertainty awaited her, and for the first time in a while, she felt a flicker of excitement mixed with her fear. She opened the door to find an unfamiliar figure standing there, tall and imposing, cloaked in an air of authority that was both intimidating and intriguing. He held a stack of documents. A thin edge of urgency danced in his eyes. "Sarah Thompson?" he asked, his voice steady, almost too formal for the gravity of the moment. "Yes," she replied, trying to read him, skeptical yet curious about this unforeseen development. "I'm Derek, an investigator," he stated, and she noticed the pointedness of his gaze as if assessing her very essence. "I'm here about your grandfather's estate." "Estate?" Confusion washed over her. Her mind raced with thoughts about debts, legacies, and all that was at stake. "What do you mean?" He shifted his weight uncomfortably, and Sarah felt a pressure, a tension creeping back into the air. "There are serious allegations about hidden assets connected to the ledger you're studying. I believe they may uncover more than just financial secrets. They could potentially alter your family's narrative entirely." Her heart sank, but then surged again. Could this be what Marcus hinted at? The very possibility of reconciling past failures with future opportunities hung in the air like smoke. "What do you know about them?" Sarah asked, a newfound assertiveness edging into her tone, reflective of her unwavering commitment to her family's history. Derek stepped inside as if falling into her rhythm. "I'm here to help, but I need you to be prepared. What we find may not be welcome." He handed her a file, and she felt its weight in her hands. It was heavy with potential, just like her unresolved family legacy. Sarah opened the file cautiously. Inside were photographs, cut-out newspaper clippings, and financial statements, some of which were stained, perhaps from years of neglect. Flickers of names danced from the pages, echoing with a history she couldn't fully grasp. "You think there are hidden assets? Assets or liabilities?" he replied, his voice low and earnest. "But either way, they unravel your grandfather's decisions. You must be ready for the truths that will emerge. You'll need to confront them, not just for the estate, but for your sense of who you are. Beneath his words lay an unmistakable charge of urgency and responsibility, and with each passing moment, a sense of duty sparked within her. It was no longer just about reclaiming her family's narrative. It was about redefining her very identity. "Can you promise me one thing?" she ventured, locking eyes with him, her resolve hardening. "Whatever we uncover, it needs to be the truth, no matter how uncomfortable." Derek nodded, looking impressed but slightly concerned. He understood the weight of ambition. The truth has its own ways of revealing itself, and it can be ruthless. But it's essential for you to face it head-on. You must learn to navigate the hardships with wisdom. And just when Sarah thought the conversation could delve deeper, another knock interrupted. Just as forceful as the last. The sound echoed through the thin walls, reverberating through her as if cementing her resolve to confront not only her family's legacy, but also her own fears. Who could that be? She pondered aloud, a knot tightening in her stomach. Derek's composed demeanor didn't falter, yet she could sense an undertone of anxiousness in the air. "We need to prepare for this next encounter," he cautioned. "Whatever force is behind those knocks might be more significant than we understand." Then it hit her, a realization that struck a chord deeper than the frantic knocks or the disarray of her family's ledger. The moment she had sought to reclaim her voice was rippling outward again. She was entangled in the waves of her past, and now, those waves were crashing into her present, beckoning her to rise above them. "Let's see what's on the other side of that door," Sarah said, swallowing hard, readying herself not for just another confrontation, but for a revelation that could turn the tides of her future. Would she stand firm as the author of her own story? Or would she unravel beneath the unrelenting pressure? With determination etched into her features, she reached for the door again. A moment of truth awaited her, destabilized yet emboldened by the unknown. As Sarah gripped the cold doorknob, Derek's presence loomed behind her, a steadying force she both needed and resented. Her breath quickened, tension rising like a storm in her chest. What if this next confrontation would unearth more than just dusty papers or old family scandals? What if it altered the very foundation of her identity? With a deep inhale, she twisted the knob and pulled the door open, bracing herself. The hallway outside was dimly lit, and the atmosphere thickened as she stepped into the unknown. Standing there was a woman, fierce yet open, her dark hair stark against the stark white walls. "Sarah, I'm Eliza," she said, her tone both welcoming and urgent. "We need to talk about your grandfather, specifically concerning his assets and decisions." Sarah felt her heart thud with renewed vigor. The recent revelations about her grandfather's legacy felt like puzzle pieces, shifting into clearer focus. "What do you know about him?" she asked, challenging herself to keep her voice steady, reflecting a composure she barely felt. Eliza's eyes sparked with determination. "He had ties to an unreported trust. A lot of money that may be entangled in rogue dealings. This isn't merely financial. It was deeply personal for him. And it's now personal for you, too." Sarah blinked, the weight of her family's past now a tangible burden. She had embarked on this journey seeking clarity, but clarity often came at the cost of discomfort, and she was beginning to realize just how steep that price would be. Derek mentioned hidden assets. "Are you suggesting that he—" Sarah's voice caught in her throat. The implications of her grandfather's choices were dawning on her like bitter twilight. Eliza stepped closer, her voice lowering to a near whisper. "He was protective of his secrets, even when that meant jeopardizing your future. But uncovering the truth can be liberating." The juxtaposition of protection and betrayal echoed in Sarah's mind. She recalled the stories of her grandfather, the man who had been both her hero and her enigma. She instinctively positioned how she felt. Betrayed, yet curious to learn about the legacy she never truly understood. "Why now?" she asked. "Why come to me?" Eliza shifted on her feet, weighing her next words with care. "Because there are others interested in silencing the past. If you don't confront this, you may find yourself entangled in something far larger than yourself." Chills traveled up Sarah's spine. This was no longer about finances or old family disputes. This was about power dynamics in a narrative she never wished to rewrite. Yet every part of her screamed that understanding was necessary, and perhaps even imperative for her future. As uncertainty swirled around her, Sarah realized she had a choice: to shy away from this challenge, as her grandfather might have done, or to step into the light of clarity he had shunned. Courage surged again, this time more potent. "Okay," she said firmly, glancing back at Derek, who watched her closely. "I'll dig deeper, but I need the full picture. Every name, every dollar, every choice." Eliza smiled, a newfound respect lighting her features. "Then we'll need to collaborate. I have some contacts who can help, but we have to act fast. There are forces at play that won't want the truth to come out." A swell of determination filled Sarah as she felt the weight of their mission looming ahead. Navigating this treacherous path would demand more than strategy. It required an unyielding commitment to her own growth and identity. But as Eliza and Derek exchanged knowing glances behind her, uncertainty flickered like shadows on the walls. Were they truly allies? Or was there an undercurrent of ulterior motives lurking beneath the surface? With resoluteness anchoring her, Sarah took a deep breath and prepared herself for the challenges ahead. Secrets needed unveiling, and she would not back down. "Set up the meetings. I'm ready." As they started plotting their next steps, another uncertainty loomed large. If the truth wasn't what they expected, could Sarah handle the fallout? That answer lingered in the air like a shadow, waiting to envelop her when the moment arrived. The next few days unfolded like a tightly woven tapestry, each thread a connection to a past. Sarah was determined to unravel. Eliza had wasted no time. They met with her contacts who specialized in obscure financial records and corporate ties. Strategizing in a weathered office filled with old books and dusty paperwork, Sarah felt a mixture of anticipation and trepidation as they mapped out the potential labyrinthine connections her grandfather had forged. Weeks of painstaking tracking ensued, with Eliza guiding her through tangled bank statements and encrypted emails. The financial jargon often felt like a foreign language, but with each revelation, Sarah's confidence began to grow. She took pride in her new understanding, dissecting charts and compiling databases. It was as if through these activities she started to construct a new part of herself, one that was assertive and knowledgeable, standing firmly in contrast to the self-doubt that had long shadowed her. But amidst the tactical maneuvering, she felt something simmer beneath her thoughts. The walls of her grandfather's carefully curated reputation were beginning to crack, exposing not only unflattering truths, but also an unsettling vulnerability within herself. Who had she been before this journey? Oblivious, sheltered. The reflection of her former self revealed ripples of regret for not having pursued answers sooner. As they made progress, whispers of others involved in the trust began to surface, stirring an anxious energy in Sarah. One nameless figure had turned out to be a significant link in both the family connections and the intricate web of deceit they were now navigating. Why had her grandfather obscured such pivotal connections? A late evening brought the most significant breakthrough. Eliza stood at the center of the dimly lit office, pages flung across the table. "Look at this," she urged, excitement tinged with urgency. "This company, your grandfather had dealings with them just prior to his death. The assets were moved under dubious circumstances." Heart racing, Sarah examined the documents. They revealed a series of clandestine transactions, hints of a larger operation, and the unsettling realization that power was never relinquished willingly. "It's not just about money," Eliza said, reading Sarah's expression. "He was likely trying to protect you from something bigger than you can imagine." The tension rolled through Sarah, tightening around her like a constricting wire. Her grandfather had not only hidden money, he had hidden a truth that might threaten her very understanding of who she was. How could she reconcile this legacy with her own identity? Could she become the person capable of confronting those who lurked in the shadows of this family saga? Determination surged, but so did a gnawing doubt. Would she be strong enough to face the storm ahead? The question reverberated within her. Was she ready for the fallout that would inevitably accompany these discoveries? That night, Sarah sat in bed, enveloped in silence, the weight of her grandfather's secrets heavy on her heart. She was faced with a dilemma that felt insurmountable. Should she push forward in her pursuit of truth, risking everything that she had known, or should she retreat back to the safety of ignorance? The former felt empowering, yet perilous. In a moment of clarity, she made her decision. The next day, she confronted Derek. "We're not just uncovering money here. We're possibly unearthing motives, entangling ourselves in a web that could unleash dangers. Are you still with me, or do you want to pull back?" His gaze was steady, unwavering. "You're not alone in this, Sarah. I believed in this journey with you from the start. We see this through together, come what may." But as reassurance washed over Sarah, another disturbance tugged at her consciousness. Was Derek truly an ally whom she could trust implicitly? Or did his ongoing support stem from an ulterior motive she had yet to uncover? Just then, her phone buzzed on the nightstand, an unknown number flashing on the screen. Hesitation gripped her as she answered the call. "Sarah." A voice laced with urgency questioned. "You need to meet me. Everything you think you know is about to change." A shiver ran through her. As the reality of what lay ahead loomed once more, she grappled with the possibility that her journey was only beginning. The urgency in the caller's voice left Sarah with a bittersweet mixture of apprehension and excitement. She felt as though she was on the precipice of something monumental. Without hesitating, she grabbed her coat and stepped outside, the crisp air jolting her back to reality. With each step towards the meeting place, her mind raced. Who was this person? What could they reveal that she hadn't already discovered? Minutes later, she arrived at a small cafe tucked between towering buildings. A flickering neon sign buzzed overhead, and she spotted a man sitting alone at a corner table. His demeanor was calm yet guarded, eyes scanning the room as if aware of invisible observers. "Sarah?" he said, rising to greet her. There was something strikingly familiar about his features. Sharp jawline, weary eyes. He reminded her of someone she couldn't quite place. "Who are you?" she asked, trying to sound more composed than she felt. "Ethan," he replied, taking a seat again as she settled across from him. "I worked with your grandfather. We need to talk about the business dealings." Ethan's tone was both earnest and urgent. "You're on the right path, but there are things you don't see. Your grandfather was involved in more than just financial transactions. It was a cover, a facade." Disbelief threatened to overtake her. "What are you talking about?" He leaned forward, lowering his voice. "There are people who want what he buried. You need to know that the truth isn't just buried in spreadsheets. It's dangerous." His words hung in the air, almost tangible. Sarah's pulse quickened. The stakes were rising, and she could feel the weight of her purpose shifting, transforming from a quest for understanding to a fight for survival. "What do you mean, dangerous? Who are these people?" She pressed, desperate for clarity. Ethan hesitated, glancing around as if fearing they were being watched. "I can't say too much here, but you need to understand. Your grandfather wasn't just keeping secrets for your sake. He was trying to protect you from a world that's very real and cruel. A cocktail of emotions swirled within her. Anger, fear, a dawning realization that this quest for knowledge was quickly transforming into a journey into darkness. And what do I do now? Am I supposed to go back to my life pretending this doesn't exist? No, Ethan said firmly. You need to be smart. Use what you've learned. You're not the girl who started this journey. You're stronger now. But you must tread carefully. As his words resonated, Sarah felt a flicker of resolve igniting within her. She was no longer willing to be a passive participant in her grandfather's narrative. Something vital connected her to this newfound knowledge. Something palpable. She was ready to step into the role destiny had laid before her, even if it meant confronting her deepest fears and the hidden truths of her family's legacy. Ethan reached into his bag and produced a small envelope. Inside are documents I managed to secure that could help you, but it's your choice to see this through. Just be prepared. Once you open that door, there's no going back. The weight of the envelope, both physical and metaphorical, settled in her hands, a tangible symbol of her transition from ignorance to empowerment. But questions loomed larger than ever. What were these documents? What did Ethan know? And how far would she need to go to protect herself? As she glanced into Ethan's eyes, she saw the urgency reflected back. Not just for her own safety, but for the truth that seeped further into her family's identity. It was a perilous path stretching ahead, fraught with danger and uncertainty. Her phone buzzed again, this time an alert flashing. A reminder of a scheduled meeting with Derek. As the familiar weight of another choice loomed, Sarah felt the threads of her life intertwining with those of unyielding truths, secrets extending beyond her comprehension. She had to decide. Would she confide in Derek about Ethan and the envelope? Or would she venture forward risking the bonds of loyalty and trust? She locked eyes with Ethan. I'm not afraid. I'll confront whatever's waiting in the shadows. With newfound determination, she stood to leave, the envelope clutched in her hand. But as she turned to exit the cafe, the uneasy feeling rose again, whispering the very real danger that was inching ever closer. Her journey was still unfolding. As she stepped out into the thrumming city, Sarah's phone buzzed again, a message from an unknown sender. I know what you're going to do. You should reconsider. It was clear. Shadows were gathering, and the storm was about to intensify. As Sarah strode purposefully down the bustling streets, the envelope's weight became a reminder of the stake she now held in her family's tumultuous legacy. The urgency of her recent encounters intensified her heartbeat, alongside the raw fear of what awaited her. She hadn't merely ventured into the realm of family secrets. She had embarked on a quest for her own identity, challenging decades of overshadowed truths that shaped her existence. Ethan's warning echoed in her mind. She felt the unease mingling with her newfound strength, a potent cocktail of determination and dread, each sip fueling her resolve. She was no longer the girl tethered to her grandfather's dark past. She had begun forging her own identity, fortified by insight into her family's fractures. When she arrived at the cafe for her meeting with Derek, the tension in her chest tightened at the thought of revealing Ethan's warnings. What if her carefully laid plans crumbled? Would sharing everything risk their budding alliance? But she couldn't bury the truth again. Not after everything she'd uncovered. Derek sat at a corner table, peering over a set of documents while occasionally glancing toward the door. As she approached, he greeted her with a nod, unaware of the storm brewing within her. She slipped into the seat across from him and laid the envelope on the table. Derek's brow furrowed, sharpening his focus on the envelope. What's that? Information from someone connected to my grandfather's dealings, she replied, her voice steadier than her mind. It's important, Derek. There are complications, dangers tied to our investigation. Derek leaned in, eager yet cautious. What kind of dangers? As anxiety flared within her, she decided to disclose only what she could confirm. Yet the weight of the envelope felt heavy on the table, its promise of revelation palpable. Claims about hidden assets, people wanting control over the past, and more personal motivations that my grandfather harbored. His eyes sharpened, defensive and intense. "And what do you intend to do with this information?" "Everything. We need to dive deeper," she declared, thoughts racing through her mind, recalling Ethan's warnings as she watched Derek's reaction. "I can't navigate this alone. If we're going to reclaim my family's legacy, we must face this truth together. No more secrets." The air thickened, an uneasy silence enveloping their table as both of them confronted the weight of their decisions. Would their alliance withstand the truths yet to unfold? Would Derek remain steadfast when faced with the realities they had unearthed? After a moment he nodded, the tension in his features dissolving. "Okay. Whatever it takes. You have my full support." Feeling emboldened, Sarah reached for the envelope, feeling the tremors of anticipation bubble within her as she prepared to unfold the contents. The careful unwrapping led her heart to speed, revealing certain documents. Financial statements leading to mentions of dubious contracts. Names she recognized from her grandfather's ledger, alongside places that seemed forgotten in the shadows of their family history. Sarah felt a surge of clarity. The pieces were coming together. The lifeblood of secrets that once constrained her family now fueled her resolve. But as she absorbed each detail, a creeping thought lingered. What if they were mistaken, misinterpreting the path her grandfather had chosen? Yet the powerful recognition overshadowed any doubts that had plagued her. Reclaiming her narrative required understanding the motives lurking beneath the surface. "Let's set a meeting with Ethan," she suggested, recounting their encounters while pinpointing the importance of collaborative insight. Derek hesitated. "Are you sure we can trust him? He could be misaligned with our intentions." "No more doubt. I'm done tiptoeing around fears." The words affirmed her as much as they reflected her transformation. "We can comprehend the truth together. We can define what that legacy really means." Revelation coursed through her veins as they began to formulate a plan. This wasn't merely about avoiding her grandfather's fate. It was about taking back the narrative of her life. A blend of determination and newfound conviction ignited each sentence they exchanged as ideas materialized before them, entwining their destinies in an unwavering thread. Days morphed into a flurry of meetings, discussions, and strategic explorations. One evening, as she prepared for a meeting with Eliza and Derek, Sarah took a moment to reflect upon her journey. A far cry from the hesitant woman who had entered the farmhouse weeks prior. She stood confidently before the mirror, catching sight of her resolute gaze. "I can do this," she whispered, affirming the potential she had discovered. The fear that once shackled her to her grandfather's shame was dissipating, replaced by a focus on her own aspirations. That night, as she assembled with her allies, the dynamic blossomed into a synergy she hadn't known before. The trio merged unique perspectives, each contributing threads to the tapestry of a story rewritten. They dissected documents, reframed narratives, and unveiled what had previously remained hidden. Not just about the financial pursuits, but the very essence of her family's identity. However, as they sat poring over their findings, the tension returned when a shadowy figure approached their table, peering in from the door. Was it a friend or another adversary? The moment crystallized. The resolve to confront these changes ignited clarity within Sarah. As she rose to address the newcomer, the atmosphere thickened with potential conflict. But she would meet this moment without hesitation. "This is my story now," she declared, allowing the strength of her journey to radiate through her as she stood firm, ready to face the precipice of transformation. The startled figure stepped inside, an unexpected ally who would bridge the emotional and professional fractures. But they weren't just peering into the darkness. They were carving a path toward redemption, emboldened by the truth, once more powerful as they broke through the shadows together. In this intricate dance of resolve, secrets gave way to clarity, allowing Sarah to propel herself toward achievement. A clearer understanding of legacy rooted not in shame, but in a foundation reborn through conviction and empowerment. Now, etched in determination, she would lead her own narrative, rewriting her family's legacy with each step forward. Whatever awaited beyond, she faced it not as a prisoner of her past, but as its author, resolute in her command over the future. This was her awakening, the greatest achievement of all. And as she deepened her commitment, she understood the urgent call for action. Face your narratives, illuminate your truths, and embrace your identity wholeheartedly. Now it's time for you to take that leap. Subscribe immediately to the channel for more transformative journeys. Don't let the opportunity slip past you. Leave a like now to ensure these stories reach others who need to embrace their own transformations. Comment below what this ending meant to you, and share your reflections. Don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who can learn from this conclusion. Your support matters.